First, let me introduce myself. My name is Anusit Pachira Chalanwong, and this presentation is a part of database course semester 2. Okay, so let's get started. Do not waste any time here. So first, let's see what we are going to know in this slide. First, the background. Second, the database design. Third, database creation. And fourth, answering business requirements. So first, let's go to the background. Some may ask, why do I choose this topic? So in today's environment, health and fitness are extremely relevant. It is important to manage the fitness center in order to meet the need of the users. Since there are many relations between different people, a database system can become helpful to demonstrate the complex fitness center system and ensure the relational schema meet all of the business requirements. So in this database, the scope is the customer of the fitness, the facility in the fitness, the session of the workout in the fitness, and the trainer. For this database is for a medium-sized fitness, so this would be all of the scope that we will cover. Next, the database design. So I use SQL Server to design the database for this topic because it is easy to use and can be used to be our measurement of understanding in the SQL lesson we learned earlier in the semester. Okay, so this is the UML of the database design here. So first, let me explain one by one. Let's start with the facilities. Facility is the service that the fitness provided. So facility have three attributes: FID or fit, facility ID, F name or facility name, F availability or the availability of the facilities. So the primary key is FID. Next, the customer. Customer have 11 attributes. First, CID or customer ID, customer name, customer phone number, customer height, customer weight, customer age, the address, the report of each customer, which will represent as a foreign key to the member report table, session that customer attend in, the facility that the customer make a reservation to, and lastly, the trainer which train that customer. So let's go to the next is member report. Member report has three attributes: is ID, RFAT, and RMuscle. Its primary key is ID or report ID. RFAT represent the fat percentage in customer body, and RMuscle represent the muscle percentage. So next, let's go to a trainer. Trainer have four attributes: is TID or trainer ID, T name, T address, and T phone. The primary key is TID, which represent the trainer ID, which is unique for each trainer. Next, the session. Session have 5 attributes: SID, the start time, the end time, the trainer who is training that session, and the equipment used in that session. The primary key is SID or session ID. Next, equipment. Equipment have 3 attributes: EID, E-availability, and E-name. And the primary key is E-name. So facility and equipment is more likely with each other because it have the same stereotype of attribute, and actually the primary key of facility is F name because the name of each facility is distinct. So I will talk about the relationship between each table. Okay, so first let's look at this one. So the customer can use 0 to 1 facility. That means he can use the facility or doesn't use at all. But the facility can be used by many customers. Next, the member report. One member report only belongs to one customer, and one customer only have one member report, so it's 1 to 1. Next, the trainer with the customer. So the customer can have only one trainer, but one trainer can teach many customers. Yeah. So next, the customer and the session relationship. The session can have many customers, but the customer can join up only to one session or he won't join at all. Next, the trainer and the session. So one trainer can teach many sessions, but the session can have only one trainer. And last one, equipment. Equipment is used in the session. So one equipment can be used in many sessions, but each session only use one equipment. Okay, so now you might understand more about our table. So let's go to the functional dependency. Functional dependency of the customer. CID alone can determine all other attributes that contain in the customer. Session ID, SID can determine the other attribute in the session. Fname also can represent the other attribute in the facilities. Trainer, TID can represent the other attribute in trainer. Equipment, ename, equipment name can represent the other attribute in the table. And last one, ID can represent all other attribute in member report. So next, let's talk about the database normalization. Our database is in BCNF or boycott norm form because there is one or more candidate key in some table. There is more than one candidate key in some table. For example, the facility table, the FID can also determine the other attribute of the facility, and more likely as EID or equipment ID, which can also determine the other attribute of the equipment. So as you can see, Fname and FID is the candidate key, EID and ename is candidate key. So both can be the primary key. So that's why our database is in BCNF. So next, let's talk about creating our table. So we're creating our table. There are 6 tables. So we start by adding the attribute to each table and create them. So here is the code. And next, we insert the data into those tables. So first, I will show you the data in each table. This is the data in customer table. As you can see that there is the information of each customer and the facility they use, the trainer ID which train them, and the report ID. Okay, so next is the equipment. Equipment have name, have their ID and their availabilities, the status. So some may be under maintenance, some may be available, and some may not be available. Next is the facilities. So there are 5 facilities in this fitness and they have name and availability. Next is the report. Because we have 5 customers in our business, there are 5 reports for each customer, and they tell the fat percentage and the muscle percentage that each customer have. Next, the session. Each session have the start time and the end time, the trainer ID who teach in the session, and the equipment used in the session. And last one is the trainer. Each trainer also have their basic information here and have their distinct ID which determine. Okay, so let's go to our next part, or the answering business question. So first question, all customers who use the fitness center. So as you can see, we run here and it will show the result or the customer in the fitness center. This is simple query. Second question, customer name who use locker room. So in this query, we use where clause to define the facility name that customer use, and when we run, we got 2 customers who use the locker, which is Faye and Sam. As you can see in this table, Faye and Sam use locker. Okay, for the third question, average age of the customer who use the fitness. sorry. So in this query, we use the aggregate function or the average function here to determine the average age of the customer who use our fitness center. So when we run, we got 20 as the average age, as we specify the column table name here. Okay. So next, question 4. Trainer name who train customer named Doris. So in this query, we use InnerJoin to join the trainer and customer table. So we agree on the TID equal the 3 trainer, which is meaning is the trainer who have the same ID in customer table and the trainer table, and the customer name which be Doris. So when we run here, the trainer who trained Doris is Mark. As you can see, Doris trainer have ID 1, and in trainer table, the trainer that has ID 1 name is Mark. Okay, so that is correct. Next questions. The facility name that start with S and have availability equal yes. So in this function, we use like S %, which means start with S and the F availability to check the availability of each facility. So when you run here, we got sauna and shower room with start with S and the availability is yes. Okay, so next question, number 6. So in this one, we want to know the name of the people, which means the customer and the trainer who join the session that's used boxing. So in this query, we use double inner join clause here. So first, we join the session with the customer and agree on the session ID, and we join the session with the trainer and agree on the session ID. And we specify the session equipment is boxing. So when we run, we got the trainer name is Kua, and the C name, customer name is Edward and Gray. So there's 3 people who joined the session. We can verify this by looking at this table. So the session that use boxing ID is 2 and the trainer ID is 2. And when we go to here, trainer ID 2 name is Kua, so that is correct. And when we look at the customer's table, customer who joined the session 2 is Gary and Edward. So we got the right answer here. The 7th question, the greatest number of sessions that the trainer teach. Okay, so in this one, we use the subquery in from to show the greatest number of sessions that the trainer teach in. So this means we want to select the maximum session count from the session ID that group the trainer by their SID. So when we go to session table, there is trainer who have the same ID here is 1. So the trainer with ID 1 teach 2 sessions, which means the maximum number of sessions that trainer teach is 2. Okay. And for the last one, the customer who have the most muscle percentage in body written down in his member report. So in this query, we use subquery in where they not exceed any customer who have percentage of muscle greater than R1 or report of the customer 1. So we got Gary. Gary is the customer who have the most percentage written down in the report with 50%. We can verify here. So in the report table, the highest muscle percentage is 50 and the report ID is 4. When we look at the customer table, the customer which have highest, we have the report ID equal 4 is Gary. So the result here is Gary and 50%. That is correct. To answer the conclusion, does our database satisfy business requirement? So as we say here, there is 2 people here is the customer and the trainer. So first, let's look at the report. The customer have report, and as the example query, the customer can access their report and look at the detail and edit their stuff, but trainer doesn't have report. Session, customer and trainer can join the session as we shown in the example. Info, we can get customer info and trainer info. facilities. Customer can access facility, but retainer cannot. So we can prove that our database can query and meet the business requirement. There's an extra note that the session can access the equipment too. So we already showed that in example about the boxing, which session can access the equipment boxing. So in a conclusion, I hope you understand more about SQL Server from this presentation, and thank you for listening and watching. So this slide is created by SlideGo. Thanks for that.